Thank you for joining us today on the Conform to Christ podcast, where we seek to engage the mind, affect the heart, and call people to follow Christ. I'm Jay Jones. I'm here with George Mays. It's Text Driven Tuesday. How's it going, George?
Going well.
Good.
Not too bad.
Good. Good Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. It was good. Had a good community group.
Nice. You want to grab your Bible and go to Genesis chapter 11. We are continuing our look at Genesis. We've come to the Tower of Babel. Had a lot of people in church yesterday, George.
Yeah.
We've been having a lot anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and there were more than normal. Yeah, we had a few guests. Thought we would have more guests, but we did have some.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that same thing happened all over the country.
Mm-hmm. That's what I heard. That's what I've been reading. Yeah.
Yeah. So, hopefully people preach the gospel with all the new people and the guests that were present. Didn't squander that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll jump in and we'll probably don't need you to update us all the way back through like you did last time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we've come to chapter 11, Tower of Babel, one of the most famous stories, I think, maybe in the Bible. I remember being fascinated with the story when I was a kid. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah. It was an interesting story.
Yeah.
And some misconceptions
Yeah.
about the story.
Yeah. I had this little encyclopedia, Bible encyclopedia, had this picture, and it's probably a famous painting done by someone, I don't know, but it's like a giant tower. The Tower of Babel is a tower, and it has like a ramp that goes around the outside of it, like a spiral, like a candy cane,
Yeah.
like all the way up.
Okay.
You remember seeing that?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably not what it looked like. I mean, it's possible.
Maybe. I mean, it's possible. Probably not, but I mean, it's possible. I mean, there's definitely some mystery in this story. There's some things that we don't know about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're kind of piecing things together from what we know about other construction projects like this in Mesopotamia.
Yeah. So you started off with Nietzsche's famous quote about God being dead.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe read that and tell us why
Sure.
you chose this.
Well, one, it's an attention grabber.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
The first thing you say after everyone sits down is God is dead. You're trying to get people to pay attention real quick. Yeah. Well, this is from, I did not say the book that it was from because it's called The Gay Science. I didn't want to have to explain that.
Old gay or new gay?
But I would imagine old gay. This was written in 1882.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, maybe I'll just
The Happy Science?
I'll just hold that back. Yeah. And this is in the section titled The Madman. So everything that I'm about to read is from the mouth of this madman who's running through the streets of his city crying this out.
Yeah.
So he says, God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we not ourselves become gods simply to appear worthy of it?
Right.
Did it grab your attention?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
This was a hard sermon for me to write. The story is pretty simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
The application was more challenging, especially with everything that happened last week.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still in kind of the early stages of my outline when Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how am I going to address this? And I think it was providential that we were in the Tower of Babel. I mean, I saw a lot of people that were uh, stopping their sermon series to address, all the anger and sadness that people are feeling. How should the church respond? Things like that. And as I was thinking about the Tower of Babel, I was thinking this actually fits exactly where we are as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they're doing at the Tower of Babel is they are trying to get rid of God and become gods themselves. It's parallel to Genesis 6, where the wickedness of men is so great. In chapter 6, it's all over the earth. In chapter 11, they don't want to be dispersed, so it's all concentrated in one place. But they want to basically build this tower to heaven in order to assault heaven and get rid of God. That they want to throw him down so that they can establish their own throne. And that's what we see in America. I mean, we see Nietzsche is far from being a Christian, but in this passage that I just read, he is expressing the dismay at the thought that that society as a whole has moved on from God. Because even though he himself is not a Christian, and he actually despises Christianity, he still recognizes that the foundation for morality is Christianity, and that for it to be just suddenly snatched away, all society is going to crumble. That's why he has to later on invent the Ubermensch, the Superman, who is the only person who is totally free of all morality and spirituality, and he just does whatever he wants without any guilt or shame or hesitation. He just does what he wants, because he knows that without Christianity, it all crumbles. It was someone at Community Group mentioned Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
Richard Dawkins, who is a famous atheist, even he has said that he'd rather live in a Christian society than a non-Christian society, because he recognizes that Christianity actually makes society better. But what we're seeing in our own society is people wanting to throw off all kinds of all religion. They don't want morality based on Christianity or the idea of God, and so they're essentially doing what Nietzsche's madman is crying out that we've done, and it really is. It's just the Tower of Babel. It's our society throwing off God in order to become God, and all we're seeing is the consequences of that played out in real time. And David, he says in Psalm 14 that the fool says in his heart there is no God. He's not talking so much about someone who is saying there is no God, but someone who's living as if there's no God.
Right.
As if there is no ultimate authority who's going to judge me. A practical atheist is what it's been called.
Right.
And so even in our own society, with people claiming to be, spiritual but not religious, they're still practical atheists. And so I thought the Tower of Babel was just providentially that's the passage we were on.
Right.
And I think it touches on everything that we're seeing in America today.
Yeah. Yeah. You're seeing a lot of people, like in all of these various movements, they're starting to they're starting to live out that if there's absence of God, what remains? It's power and force.
Yeah.
And if it's not bound by any morality, then you're going to get violence and all kinds of crazy things in the world that are manifesting. In fact, Nietzsche was criticizing his culture, right?
Yeah.
Like we think we killed God. Modernity, we've killed God, and yet we still live like He's here.
Yeah.
there's but eventually that breaks down in
Mhm.
societies and people start living like he's not there,
Right.
and then society unravels. Yeah, it was good opener. All right, well, let's have you read the passage, and then we'll jump into it. And today we're going to see 3 timeless warnings from Babel's folly. 3 timeless warnings from Babel's folly.
All right. We are looking at verses 1 through 9 of Genesis 11. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." And Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And Yahweh said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." So Yahweh dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there Yahweh confused the language of all the earth. And from there Yahweh dispersed them over the face of all the earth.
All right. So maybe tell us like why this is it just on if you just kind of read through it and don't pay attention to everything that came before, you might think like, what's the big deal? What's the big deal about building like wanting to have a secure place to live and to build a big tower that's high?
Yeah.
And God's response is to come down and scatter their language. That seems a little bit extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And now people can't understand each other. They have to disperse. They have to go everywhere. So frame it in the context of the unfolding of Genesis.
Yeah. We're supposed to see parallels in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. Genesis really can be split into 2 sections. 1 through 11 is often called the primeval history. And then 12 through 50 is going to be focusing on Abraham and his descendants. And in 1 through 11, we're supposed to see the emphasis on God's goodness, man's sin and rebellion, and God's judgment. So in chapter 1, there's creation, and then there is 3 rebellions, like explicit rebellions. We have Adam and Eve. They rebel against God in the garden because they want to be like God. Right? They're jealous of God's freedom. They want to be able to be the determiner of their own fate and morality. So they rebel. Then we have Cain. He's jealous of God accepting his brother and his brother's sacrifice, so he murders his brother. And then Genesis chapter 6 is the sons of God intermarrying with the daughters of women, and the whole earth is filled with violence. Right? And then there's the judgment of the flood. We're supposed to see kind of the whole story working itself out again after the flood. So the flood judgment is like decreation. Chapter 8 is new creations, recreation. The flood waters, they part, dry land appears. Noah and his wife are told to be fruitful, multiply, fill the whole earth. They're new Adam and Eve. Then Noah sins by getting drunk by fruit, right? Fruit of the vine. So he's a new Adam. Ham and his shaming his father is meant to be seen as another Cain. Then there is the genealogy in the Table of Nations that we looked at last week, which is parallel to Cain and Seth's genealogy in 4 and 5. And then chapter 11, Tower of Babel, is meant to be seen as a parallel to chapter 6. So the worldwide rebellion of chapter 6, worldwide rebellion in chapter 11. Mm-hmm. And the flood judgment follows the rebellion of chapter 6. We'll see a different kind of judgment here at the end of the rebellion of chapter 11. Mm. And it's just emphasizing over and over and over again, here is the condition of man. man is in constant rebellion against God and is deserving of God's judgment. And the only thing that the only hope we have is that God will show grace on us.
Okay. So for someone who's reading it and they're like, I don't see how this is rebellion. Like make that explicit for those that are maybe newer to the Bible, Christianity. How is it rebellion to build a city and a tower? How's that rebelling against God?
I was going to just a second. Sorry. I was looking at my notes and I was like, we could throw this up on the screen, I guess.
Oh, you got your picture?
In case someone wants to see the parallel. And this isn't original to me. This is from a commentary by Andrew Steinman. There's the parallels for us. See them right next to each other.
Yeah.
Well, you want to get into the first point because that makes up a lot of the
I
first point.
Is wicked men will desire heaven without God.
Right.
Wicked men will desire heaven without God.
Right. And that's what they're doing. Right. So a surface level reading of the story is like, what's a big deal? They're just building a city and a tower. Is that such a bad thing? Well, there are hints within the story. Not only are we supposed to see that parallel, so Moses is assuming that you're smart. That's nice of him, right? Yeah. he's assuming that you can see the parallels, that he's throwing in these little hints so that when you see Noah getting drunk and laying naked, you're supposed to be like, that's Adam. When Ham is going in and basically throwing off all familial relationships, like this is your closest relationship, and he's shaming his father. You're supposed to be like, well, he's just like Cain. You're just supposed to see the same. You're supposed to see these parallels, and you see things in the Tower of Babel story that you're supposed to say, oh, I'm picking up on that.
Yeah.
The very first thing is that after the flood, as people are migrating, they're migrating. The ESV says from the east. It probably should be to the east. Geographically, if they're coming from the mountain of Ararat, if they're coming from the Ararat region, like Armenia, going into the valley of Shinar, that's east. It's and that's how practically every translation, except for the King James, translates it. But it's the same word is picked up in chapter 13, verse 11, where Lot leaves Abram, and even the ESV translates that as he goes east. So it's probably to the east, and that's not just a directional. That's not just a minor detail in the historical telling. We're supposed to pick up on the fact that we've seen that before. When Adam and Eve are cast out of the garden, they go into the east. When Cain is cursed, he has to go to the east. Lot will go to the east in chapter 13, and he'll go and camp outside Sodom and Gomorrah. Israel, later on when they're exiled, they go to the east. This is very important when we get to Genesis chapter 12, because Abram's going to go west. The people going to the east, we're supposed to be like, that's ominous. Because that's moving. It's theologically, it's moving away from Eden. So that's the first hint that we're picking up on, that this isn't all good. The next is that they find a valley in Shinar or Sumer, and we've already seen that last week in chapter 10. Nimrod, he is king of Sumer. He's the one that starts Babel. We're supposed to see that and be like, oh, Nimrod's not a good guy. If Babel's the beginning of his kingdom, that's not good either. And then they consult with each other. That's never good either. When people start talking to each other and start planning things, that usually doesn't result in something good in the biblical text. But they say, let's build a city. The last city builder that we saw was in chapter 4, and that's Cain. There, God curses Cain to be a wanderer. He's supposed to be homeless. He's supposed to be like a vagabond on the earth. Um, in response to that, Cain says, "This punishment is too much for me to bear." God graciously gives him some kind of visible mark that he can trust that God is going to protect him. God says, "I'm going to put this mark on you, and no one's going to kill you." And Cain is supposed to believe God. Like, no one's gonna kill me. But what does he do instead? He goes and builds a city, and he names the city after himself. And the city is not just, I need a place to stay. He's building a city. The ancient cities had walls around them to protect them from outside violence. It's Cain not believing God, and explicitly rebelling against what God told him to do. You're not supposed to settle in one place. You're supposed to be a nomad. And he was like, "No thanks. I'm going to build a city." And he names it after his son. The people of Babel, they want to build a city in order to make a name for themselves, right? We're seeing these parallels. They are just reenacting Cain. This is a city full of Cain-like people, and that's not good. And then we get to the tower, and here's like misconceptions that I think we immediately think a tall building. You ever been up into the Devon Tower in Oklahoma City?
No, but I was on the old World Trade Center when I was a kid.
Okay, yeah,
and I remember it.
Yeah, I've been up on the top of the Empire State Building. Like, is that what is going on? That they're trying to build this big tower. Had one person say they always pictured the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Like, this is like up into heaven. That's not what we're supposed to be thinking about. What we should rather be thinking about is more like a pyramid or a ziggurat. And interesting phenomenon is that there are actually ziggurats all around the world. I asked ChatGPT to put this together for me. And if you want to throw this up on the screen, there are pyramid-like structures all around the world, not just in Mesopotamia. We can think of the pyramids in Egypt. There are pyramids down into Africa. There are pyramid-like structures in Cambodia. There's pyramid-like structures in Mexico and Central America. Like all around, into Asia, into like China, they have some pyramids.
Off the coast of Japan in the water, there's one.
Okay. Even in America, like outside of, what is it, Cincinnati, I think, there's like a burial mound,
Giant.
which they think was something like, was meant to be something like this. This is what they're building. They're building some kind of pyramid-like structure. It has stairs going up to the top, and the biggest. So there's several suspects for the Tower of Babel, though we don't know. I mean, it could have just. We don't even know how much of it was built before they were scattered. There's one, Etenemake. I've got Etmenanki. It's about 60 miles south of Baghdad in Hilla, Iraq. You know where that is?
No.
Okay. It's a big pyramid. It's in ruins. Nebuchadnezzar, he rebuilt it during his kingdom. It fell into disrepair during the Persians and Greeks. Alexander the Great was going to rebuild it, and he died. So it's just in ruins. There's another structure that's even older than Babylon that's down towards the Persian Gulf that they think maybe that could be it. But what we're supposed to think of is not outer space. And I think that if you just come to the text, just reading it, our American minds are like, they're trying to build like the world's biggest skyscraper up into what we would say, the heavens. That's not what they're trying to do. They believe they build these pyramid-like structures because they're supposed to symbolize mountains. Mm-hmm. And for these ancient pagan cultures, the mountains are where the gods are. And so they believe that at the top of this mountain that they built is they'll put a temple there, and they'll offer sacrifices. Think of the Aztecs. You
Yeah.
know, they're doing their human sacrifices at the top of their big ziggurats, right? They think that there's, I called it a portal.
Right.
Like, think of a portal into the heavenly places.
Right.
In the Enuma Elish Babylonian creation myth, they have a temple like a ziggurat structure being built. At the top is where Marduk's throne is. Like, they believe Marduk is up there. I use the example of Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
They
Which was on a skyscraper.
It was on a skyscraper. And they go up there, and there's a portal, and Gozer the Gozerian comes out of it.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's even like kind of a ziggurat type structure in the portal. Like, there's stairs up to this temple, right. And so that's what is going on there. It's like a portal where the gods are. And the reason why they want to do this is so that they'll make a name for themselves, and so that they won't be dispersed over the face of the earth.
Right. Which is what God told them to do.
What God explicitly tells them to do: be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And Noah's descendants say, not going to do that. We want to stay in one place. There's irony here, because on the one hand, they're boasting of this grand structure they're going to build. We're going to build this tower up to heaven so that we'll make a name for ourselves. And on the other hand, they're like, let's build a city so that we're not dispersed. So even as they're boasting, they're also expressing their insecurity. They don't want to scatter because there's safety in numbers. They want to be behind the city walls. And if Nimrod is Sargon of Akkad or Gilgamesh, then they're these tyrannical figures who are oppressing the people. But also, Josephus has Nimrod convincing the people that he's the source of their safety. And in order to enforce that, he's a tyrant. So you will let me protect you. All right. And you will serve me. You see this all over the world with dictators. I mean, this is the cult of North Korea. Like Kim Jong-un, he's the divine protector.
Yeah.
So you can't leave. That's Babel. It's all I mean, on the surface, it's all really innocent, but in reality, as we kind of peel back these layers, we see, in fact, the beginnings of this empire that wants to. Nimrod is not satisfied with just conquering Mesopotamia. He wants to assault heaven and become God. He wants to be a slaughterer, not just a people. He wants to kill God and tear him off his throne so that he can sit up there. That's what's going on. That's how wicked this building project is. And I think that the problem that we have is that we have been so we've grown so accustomed to like the cartoonish depictions of the flood and the Tower of Babel, and you got guys that are like smiling while they're putting blocks up on this building structure. Like, this is rebellion.
Yeah, it's a thread that can be traced from this part in the Bible all the way through to the end.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is the start of what will later become the kingdom of Babylon. Language, Tower of Babel language will be picked up about Babylon in Jeremiah chapter 51, where there's this long link. I mean, it's a very lengthy chapter about the judgment on Babylon. Jeremiah even says, even if they build their kingdom up into the heavens, from there God is going to send enemies who are going to destroy them.
Right.
And then we go all the way to Revelation 17 and 18 with this mystery Babylon, this kingdom in rebellion, it's not in chapter 18. It's not a tower that's ascended to heaven. It's their sin. Their sin has ascended into heaven, reaches all the way up to heaven, and from there God is going to send judgment. That's That's the big story.
Right.
I think even we would see like in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 with the man of lawlessness, lots of debate over this figure. How are we supposed to interpret this passage? Because there's just a bunch of pronouns. But what do you see is this man who he's sitting in the temple of God. He's a Nimrod figure. That's what he is. He is exalting himself above every other god.
Yeah.
And that's Tower of Babel.
Right. Right. And so these threads will be traced. There are men who are kingdom builders, but want to have the absence of God. They want to. Really, what it is it's a reaching for, as you said, heaven or Eden to get back there minus God.
Right. They want the heavenly realities. There's nothing wrong with wanting peace and security and safety and community. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is they want it without God. They're seeking it as an ultimate reality. And so they, instead of worshiping the source, they're going to worship creation.
Right.
And the creation that they're going to worship is themselves.
Right.
God's not going to give us peace and security and safety and community. We have to produce that ourselves. And that's not a Tower of Babel thing. That's just humanity.
Right.
We're still doing that.
Yeah, we got the last 100 years to give us a little bit of perspective on this. When, like, the Soviet Union, what were they after ultimately? A utopia.
Yeah.
Where
absolutely.
Where no one had any wants or needs. All their needs were met, but met by the government. And we see what comes along with that.
Right.
Of course, part of that was atheism. Religion was illegal. Christianity was illegal. You'd be killed.
It's the opium of the masses.
Yeah.
Right.
And they didn't even get close to reaching paradise.
Not even close.
Could argue they created hell on earth. If you read any of the literature from the persecuted peoples of that time, horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific.
Yeah. As I was thinking about preaching yesterday in the morning before we got to church, I started thinking about Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. You ever read Brave New World?
No.
You should. Oh yeah. It is a utopian society. They engineer babies, so there's no natural.
When was this written?
When did Brave New World come out? 40s.
This guy had some insight
30s?
Because this
Oh
is
man, these guys like
because China's doing this.
Yeah, like
They've
Brave New
created
World,
artificial wombs.
1984, Animal Farm, like that. It was almost as if they could see into the future,
Right?
and see this stuff. Yeah, there's no natural procreation. They artificially engineer babies, and it's almost like it is like a warehouse, like a factory, where at certain stages in development they'll separate them and they'll inject different DNA sequences or whatever to make the classes. Like, here's the superior ones. They have the superior looks and intellect and skills, and down here you've got like the workers, and there's a bunch of different classes. And then after they're born, they are conditioned to accept their class as the best and the happiest. And so those at the top are meant to see themselves as, apex, and everyone else is inferior. But those at the bottom are also conditioned to believe that they are the best. And you don't want to be like them. Look at all the stuff they got to do. Like, aren't you happy where you are? And they're just conditioned from childhood to do that. But then in society, they're conditioned. And it's stated over and over and over again in the book. Everyone is happy. It's because they're all in their station. And then 1932, that was pretty close. They're happy in their place in life, but then they have unfettered access to all the entertainment that they could want. They don't procreate, but they it is it's pushed on you to have like unfettered promiscuous sex. Everyone belongs to everyone. And then they have this drug called soma that it literally is the opiate of the masses. Like it keeps them feeling happy all the time and drugged. Um, that's not Brave New World. That's 2025 America. Like
Right.
that's what we have. We have all the entertainment you could ever want, all the promiscuous sex that you could want, and it's not illegal. It's doctors pushing pills to make you feel happy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is everyone happy?
No.
No. And that's what the story kind of revolves around.
Right.
But it is the pursuit of heavenly realities without God. And we see that in our culture today.
Mm-hmm.
People are looking for peace, happiness, safety, security for the future, pleasure, power. People are still trying to make a name for themselves, but all without God. That's why we are the most overly medicated society, because people they have anxiety, they have depression, and instead of trying to get to the root of that and seeking after God, many in our culture just want to take a pill that will make them feel happy. That's just Babel.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this is where my application was. I was really trying to. This was the application heavy part, I think.
Right.
And trying to think through this, because it's really easy for us to demonize Democrats because they practice like demonic stuff. And I knew I could stand up there and just blast the Democrats, the liberals, for all their wickedness, and I'd get a bunch of amens. But I was trying to preach to the sins in the room. And I think the sin that we often can be guilty of is seeking the same stuff that the Democrat Party is, just in a conservative angle. So the left, they want heaven. They want heaven on earth. Free healthcare, free mental health, everything's free, right? And you can have unfettered sex because you have free access to birth control and abortions. And there's no one like everyone's accepted. And you can just do whatever you want. If you want to dress up like a dog and go around pretending you're a dog, well, who's to judge you, right? So that's the left version of heaven on earth, and we would look at that and be like, that's hell. that's absolutely insane. But on the right, we can also want to pursue heavenly realities without God. And so if we just had better leaders, if we kicked out all the Democrats, if we promoted all these conservative values, then America would be great again, right? I already saw, Ben Shapiro saying he's vowed to pick up the bloodstained microphone where Charlie dropped it. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, but Ben Shapiro can't do what Charlie Kirk did, because Ben Shapiro rejects Jesus as the Messiah.
Right.
If all we're aiming for is a nation where we can have free speech, that's going to be better than a leftist society where you don't.
Right.
The conservative side is going to be a better place to raise your family. It's going to be a safer place for your kids. But if it is without Christ and all you have is this godless conservatism, that's still Tower of Babel.
Mm-hmm.
It's still rebellion against God, and it's still gonna wind up in judgment. It may be a slower decline into judgment, but it's still gonna go there. And as I was thinking through, like, how did we get here as a country? We were founded on Christian values. The reason why I think we're here, and it took time because it was based in Christian values, so it was kind of a slow decline. But you had a nation that was built on Christian values without Christians. And we see this in like the churches of the around the Great Awakening. I mean, we've talked about George Whitefield. You've got churches that are filled with unconverted people.
Right.
They're going through the motions of Christianity. But when Whitefield comes in and starts preaching, you must be born again, they kick him out because that's not what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And that was really what was going on around the Great Awakening, is you had all these churches. Like everyone went to church. The whole society was centered around like Christianity, but no one was converted. And that's what we've seen in our culture is we especially after the Second Great Awakening, where the emphasis wasn't really on conversion, it was on making a decision, walking an aisle. And so throughout the 1900s, you had people who named the name of Christ, who would have called themselves Christians and attended church, but they were never converted. And then over time, those grandparents who weren't converted would take their kids who weren't converted, and they would have kids and they weren't be converted. And you have like a tradition of going to church, but if something else comes up, that's more important. And it wasn't in the home, and it wasn't in politics, and it wasn't in the workplace. It wasn't in the public sphere. And now here we are.
It took a while.
It took a while because it was based on Christianity. And so there was, by God's grace, it was a slow decline, but it was still a decline.
Right.
Because we don't just need conservative values. We don't just need Christianity in name only. We need actual converted people. And that's what we as Christians are aiming for. We're not aiming for heavenly realities without God. We're aiming for seek first Christ and his kingdom. And so that's the danger I think that we can face. And you just see it. You see it all over social media, even with people that wanted to, honor Charlie Kirk. What are they honoring?
Right.
If it's just his conservative values, that's good. I mean, I would support the conservative values that he was advocating for, but that wasn't the basis for him having those views was Christianity. And you're not going to be able to have long impact with that without actual Christianity. You might have a better society with people who aren't trying to mutilate their bodies and become something that God didn't make them to be. But without the gospel, it's still just going to it's still just going to end up with judgment. And so we have to be aware of that. Yeah. That this is not. It's really easy to demonize the other side while ignoring that we're doing the same thing, just from a different angle.
Right.
And so we who are conservatives have to also recognize there's weaknesses on our side, there's sin on our side, and don't get swept away by the political fervor, the social changes that we want to see enacted without the gospel. Let Christianity feed into that. Like, let your Christianity impact how you view politics and society and culture.
Right.
Let that be the basis for everything else that you think and say and do in the public square.
It's good. You had a John Piper quote. I remember the first time I heard it. It struck me that in our circles, which is on the right, Christian conservative,
right?
That, I mean, I don't know the percentage, but it's well over 50%. I'd put it like up toward 90 that professing Christians, many of them, would totally take heaven if they got everything that's in this Piper quote and Jesus wasn't there.
Yeah.
You want to read that quote?
Yeah, yeah. John Piper said, the critical question for our generation and for every generation is this. If you could have heaven with no sickness and with all the friends you ever had on earth and all the food you ever liked and all the leisure activities you ever enjoyed and all the natural beauties you ever saw and all the physical pleasures you ever tasted and no human conflict or any natural disasters, could you be satisfied with heaven if Christ were not there? And I think a lot of professing Christians would say, I probably could.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right.
Because that's what man in his natural unconverted state, that's what he wants. He wants eternal life, and he wants peace. They don't want to work, right? They view heaven as just laying around all day because that's what we want to do, right? In our sinful nature, we just want to be lazy and just do nothing, and we think that's heaven. Like if I could just sit and watch TV all day and have all the food I wanted and no one's ever bothering me and there's no war, there's no natural disaster, I don't have to worry about anything, then that's heaven. I think that's why communism is so attractive to people, because those are the promises that communism and socialism provide. I think a lot of people weren't bothered by the COVID stuff in 2020 because the government's telling you to stay at home and watch TV, and they'll send you a stimulus check. Like that's heaven on earth for a lot of people. And I think that a lot of professing Christians would see the same thing, but heaven is not heaven without God.
Yeah, they, sometimes they will reveal themselves without knowing so by making comments. You'll hear people make comments, around the time maybe someone dies or even year after anniversary, they'll make posts like, I can't wait to get to heaven. And I'm, because I'll get to see my grandma
Right.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Funny story.
That kind of tips it, right? That kind of tips. Like that's good, and I understand that sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't ever see people talking about, I can't wait to get to heaven because I get to see Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I get to meet him. It doesn't seem to be the first impulse that when I get to heaven, it's, I get to see all these people I've been missing.
Right. Funny story. I was, when we lived in Kentucky, I was filling the pulpit so I always had my feelers out for a church that was looking for a pastor. And I filled the pulpit of a church in Indiana, small little Baptist church. And I decided I'd preach on Revelation 22. I think it was 22. New heavens, new earth, new Jerusalem. And one of my when I was making some application, I said, a lot of us are really excited because when we get to heaven, we're going to see our loved ones. And I got like this gigantic amen from someone in the congregation, because he didn't wait for me to finish. Because my next line was, but that's not heaven. A lot of us view heaven like we would view Disney World. Like we want like this unending pleasure with all of our friends and family around us. But that's not heaven. I never got invited back to that church. But that's how a lot of us view heaven. Is it's all earthly. It's all earthly pleasures. We view heaven like this is the best of earth. We have everything that we want, and it's all about us. Like heaven is all about us. All the stuff that we'll get when we get to heaven. That's not heaven. Heaven is all about Jesus. And I think in anticipation for heaven being all about Jesus, our lives right now need to be all about Jesus. Stop trying to pursue all these heavenly realities here on this earth. Start seeking after Christ. And when Christ comes, when we see him face to face, all the things I think that we think heaven's going to be like are just going to be annihilated.
Mm-hmm.
It just won't even compare to actually seeing God face to face. There won't be anything like it.
Right. Yeah. So you asked that question, like, could I have heaven without Jesus? If you say yes, the one thing you know is you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
Like you're not.
Yeah.
And that might be a hard thing for people to grasp, but I mean, he is. He is heaven.
Hmm.
Where he is, that place is heaven.
Right.
So I think the rest of that Piper quote is he says something like, to a Christian, that place without Jesus is
Just
hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe that's the rest of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move to the next point. Second point, foolish men will always reap chaos, not paradise. So they don't get what they're shooting for. Right.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And there's some humor in this that we miss if we're just kind of approaching this text with familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
Yahweh comes down. You're supposed to find that funny. Like, that's supposed to be humorous to you, because what have they just boasted that they're going to do?
Right. Yeah.
Let's build a tower to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And Yahweh has to come down to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be getting our theology proper from these verses as if God doesn't already know what's going on, or that he has to come down in order to see things.
Right.
Like everywhere else in the Bible, we know God is all-knowing. God is outside of time and space. He's
That's
everywhere.
I mean,
right?
it's, today's Proverbs 15. I recommend everyone read the proverb of the day.
Yeah.
And that's that Yahweh's eyes are everywhere, and
yeah.
he sees everything.
Uh-huh. Right.
Again, he doesn't have a billion eyes, but
Right.
he is everywhere. And so as we experience the temporal world, he sees everything we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Right. So what we're supposed to be getting out of this is not so much our theology proper. We're supposed to be seeing the irony of the whole situation. That they want to build to heaven. God has to come down out of heaven in order to see what they're doing. He has to get a closer look, because he has to break out the magnifying glass, because they haven't even gotten close to heaven. And so he has to come down to see what the children of man, literally the children of Adam, are building. And what's some other funny things is that the word for let us build, let us make, sounds like in that case that they're in this text, sounds like the word for fool. It sounds like Nabal.
Yeah.
So it's as if these people are saying, let's do something stupid. And so God comes down to see this stupid thing that mankind has decided they're going to try to do.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes down, and he sees this folly that they've engaged in, and he says, "Behold, they are one people; they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them." Because they're all united, they're all in one place. Think of, you see like New York City, and it's just packed, right? But they're united in this one singular purpose of it's like they've gathered together to assault heaven. Let's stay together. And God says they're all together. They all have one language. This is what they've decided to do, and nothing that they propose to do is going to be impossible for them. And I think if we just skim that, we'll be like, is God afraid that they might actually be able to build a tower to heaven? But that's not what is going on here. The word that the ESV translates as propose, it almost always has a negative meaning. With men, it usually means some kind of wicked idea, wicked intent. With God, when it's used of God, it's usually in reference to judgment, that he proposes to do something against wicked people. The best word I think that I could come up with was the word scheme. Like, nothing that they scheme will be impossible. This isn't God afraid of them. This is God showing compassion on them. Like, if they stay united in their depravity, nothing that they scheme will be impossible, and there will be no bounds to their wickedness.
Right.
They'll destroy
Everything.
Yeah, everything that they touch it'll just be ruins. So this isn't God afraid of what they'll do. This is God being wiser than they are, They're like helpless children who are playing with, an electrical socket,
Mm-hmm.
and the parent sees, if I leave them
Or
alone,
or
then
matches and gasoline.
yeah, there's no telling what these kids will do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the parent is afraid of the kid like usurping the parent and taking over. It's that the kid doesn't know that they're in mortal danger, and the parent has to snatch them away. Um, and that's what God is doing. He
Yeah.
sees that mankind is completely oblivious to the destructive nature of their own sin, and in mercy, He's going to judge them. He's going to discipline them so that they won't come
Right.
together and do these things.
So he confuses their language, which forces them to spread out
Right.
and to eventually form into nation states,
Right.
separate nation states.
Yeah.
We had talked offline about this before your sermon a little bit, and I've been doing more thinking about it.
Yeah, I've got a quote. I have the quote here in my notes, but I put it in brackets because I wasn't going to say it in the sermon, but I thought it would be interesting to talk about.
You go ahead and read it, and I'll tell you what I've kind of been thinking about.
Sure. Okay. So this is from, this was quoted in Alan P. Ross's Creation and Blessing, his commentary on Genesis.
Okay.
It's not his, it's another commentator that I don't know. But this commentator said, "It is the will of God, so long as sin is present in the world, to employ nationalism in the reduction of sin."
Yeah.
And this guy was writing in the 70s, so
Yes.
not 50 years ago.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It gave me something to chew on. I was like, I got to think about this.
Right.
And I didn't want to say it in the sermon because I felt like I'd have to just
Take a long
I'd have
sidebar.
I'd have to spend so much time talking about it.
Right. So, kind of the way I'm looking at this, and I think we have history that bears this out as example, not just our history, but biblical history. What if, like, just pretend, what if God doesn't intervene
Mhm.
and he lets people do what they want?
Right.
You have one man who is at this time Nimrod, but who knows who will replace him, possibly someone worse.
Right.
He has got absolute power
Mm.
and authority. He's a violent person. Like you already said, it implied he's a hunter of people.
Mhm.
He's violent. He takes whatever woman he wants. He doesn't leave a virgin in any town.
Right.
He's a tyrant.
Mhm.
So imagine the tyrant amasses global power. Like the whole earth is under the rule
One
of this
guy.
insane,
Mm.
wicked, godless society.
Right.
It's not hard to imagine because, again, the Soviet Union. Imagine there is no United States of America. There is no Great Britain. There's no one to oppose their power.
Mhm.
So they crush the Nazis. They sweep over the West. They sweep over the world. The whole world is the USSR.
Mhm.
The bloodshed, the violence, the inhumanity, the forced starvation, the gulags worldwide. This is now a prison planet ruled over by a few tyrants, or maybe one tyrant.
Mhm.
And there's actually no person on earth to oppose them. They have absolute power.
Mhm.
It would be hell. It would be hell on earth.
Oh yeah.
And that's what God is preventing. Now, what stopped them? What stopped the Soviet Union? We did. Another superpower kept them in check.
Mhm.
So in the world, and this is, I think, is the flaw of leftist, is they have an incorrect anthropology. I've been kind of working on something I may publish in the coming weeks. I'm not sure, but in every element of theology, every bracket, theology proper, anthropology, the doctrine of humanity, pneumatology. You can look at this biblical truth, and then you can look on the left and see that they hold to the exact opposite position. This is why it's very difficult to evangelize the left, because you got a point of connection with even a pagan. They believe in spiritual things, right? But the left sees, because of their flawed anthropology, they have this positive outlook on what we can do. Now, history shows that to be false, and the only check when humans unrestrained evil is running wild, like in the Soviet Union, is another superpower. You see that play out in the Bible too. A nation will become like savagely wicked, like the Assyrians that are described in Habakkuk. but God says that He will destroy them, and that's how God does it, right? He uses another nation, another people. He'll raise them up in judgment to restrain that evil. It's like a cycle that continues through history. But if there's no checks and balances, think of it as God's checks and balances. What are nations? What is nationalism? God's check that one nation can't rise to absolute power and turn this into hell on earth.
Right.
It's a restraint on human evil. But if you don't believe in human evil and you believe humans are basically good, you're likely to bring about or fuel a movement that could bring about the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And so it is God's grace, because if He leaves them go unrestrained, they're not going to bring heaven on earth. They're going to bring hell to earth.
Right.
And because of God loves us and He cares for us, and God has a plan to bring heaven to earth, He restrains human evil through nations.
Right.
And
yeah, I think that's right. I do think it, because we see the push for, you see the left's push to like open borders. They're opposed to nationalism, and there's abuse of the nationalism language on the right, but the answer is not on the left with no nations.
Well, just think of it. Think of it this way.
Let's just all be together. Let's just all join hands, and we'll be just one people.
They often want to draw a correlation between like the modern right movement in America and Nazis. They call us fascists.
Right.
Who stopped when nationalism goes wild and we get the Nazis?
Right.
Who stopped them?
Yeah.
Another strong nationalist country,
right,
called the United States of America. We stopped them.
Right.
Without our intervention and joining with the UK, UK would have fell.
Right.
So nationalism stopped evil nationalism.
Right.
And that's a reality.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you're right. It's the view of humans. I mean, if humans are basically good, then why should we have nations? Why should we have borders?
Right.
Like, aren't we just all one people, and we should just all just get together? And if we all just set aside our differences and listen to each other, then we just all come to a mutual understanding, and there would be no more war, and there'd be no more violence, and we'd just all have heaven.
Right.
But if you have the view that the Bible takes, that humanity is at its core wicked and in rebellion against God, then pushing us all together into one place is not good.
Right.
That's not good. That's why you see the violence, the wickedness. I would even say the pollution that we see with cities. You look at some of these cities. I mean, they're just stacked on top of each other. Like houses are just built on houses. That is humanity not spreading out. Like there's enough room on planet Earth for everyone to live. But humanity, they want to just cling to the big cities. They just want to flock together. And we see what happens in these big cities. They usually are really unsafe places. Because humans aren't good.
Right.
They're sinners. And yeah, I think that I think that this quote is right. That nationalism is a check on human wickedness. And I mean, you see it with what do the wicked empires want to do? They want to expand. They want to bring more and more in, whether it's Babylon or the Greeks or Rome. Like they're trying to amass all their power under one person, and it's not good.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right. So this is God's grace. He could have destroyed them. Again, we go back to all these rebellions, and He doesn't. Right. And why doesn't He? Well, because He's faithful and true.
Right.
And He's made a promise, and He will not go back on His promise.
Yeah. Again, Josephus, he presents Nimrod as this tyrant. So there's this Jewish tradition of who Nimrod was, and he even says that Nimrod wants to build this tower in case God decides that He's going to send a flood again. which is laughable because this is not.
Right.
But he doesn't believe. Like God has promised Noah, I won't flood the earth again. And Nimrod's like, I don't believe you.
Right.
So I'm going to build this tower just in case.
Right.
And again, remember, we're supposed to see 11 and 6 as parallel worldwide rebellion against God, deserving of extinction level events. But instead of God killing everyone in Babel, in his mercy, this is judgment. This is not a hand slap. Like this is judgment, but it's also judgment that's tempered by his grace. That he doesn't kill them, he just scatters them. And they're still alive,
Right.
But this is the irony is that they build Babel, they make a name for themselves. As he scatters them, the city is now known as Babel.
Yeah.
Because God confuses the languages. There's a lot of wordplay in the Hebrew because they want to build Nabal, and what they end up building is Babel, and a lot of the same letters are in both of those words, and it's like Moses is this master wordsmith, and he's showing like the letters have been rearranged and scrambled, and now Nabal has resulted in Babel.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of theories about what's going on here. I think we see this and think that they're now speaking different languages. One of the prevailing theories is that he actually makes them start speaking like Babel, like baby language. Like it literally is gibberish, and they can't understand each other because it's not understandable. And then as they scatter, as they disperse, that languages start to develop in different areas. But this would have been a pandemonium. There's also, I think maybe it's Philo. He says that God also sent like a storm, and like they dispersed not just because of confusion, but out of like terror that God was that this was judgment as God comes down. But he does it because he has a greater purpose, and no amount of rebellion, no amount of selfish kingdom building is going to keep God from accomplishing all of his promises and all of his purposes. But that doesn't mean that there won't be judgment. This story is not meant to just be viewed in isolation. Israel is reading this, and they're supposed to take this as a warning. This is what happens to the wicked city in rebellion against God. He will scatter them, disperse them across the face of the earth. Israel's not supposed to just see that as the pagans. This is what's going to happen to the pagans. They're supposed to take it to heart and say, this is what will happen to us if we rebel against God. And unfortunately, Israel rebelled against God, and in the Assyrian and Babylonian exile, they were forcibly dispersed across the face of the earth. They were scattered to the nations. And that will happen to any city that's in rebellion against God.
Right.
Any nation that rises up against God will also face judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're seeing in America's pursuit to get heaven on earth. All we've reaped is chaos. That's all we've got. There's no peace. Every day you turn on the news, there's some fresh horror that we have to see or hear about.
Oh yeah.
Or talk about that, and that will happen to any nation. Judgment is not just coming; judgment is here, and the only way that we can escape is if God is gracious to us and sends repentance and faith.
Yeah, it's good. All right, well, the third point then. Helpless men can never climb up. They need God to come down. This is really what the Bible's about.
Mm-hmm.
At its core.
Yeah.
This is about...
Yeah, this is the story.
Yeah. Yeah, this is it. This is about God doing for man what he can't do for himself.
Mm.
This is at the very heart of the gospel.
Yeah.
The reverse is at the heart of every religion on earth,
Right.
that man will reach up to God
Mm-hmm.
and make himself worthy,
Yeah.
but only in the Bible and in Christianity. It's the story of God coming down.
Right.
And so it's a perfect, direct tie-in, because this is where everything in Genesis is pointing us toward, to be looking forward to this and anticipating this and the whole Old Testament
Mm-hmm.
until this great truth finally arrives.
Yeah.
And what is amazing about Christianity, often I've told people, and I've done it many times, people that answer all these questions, blah, 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 and you can waste all day doing that if you want, or you can just ask them, if I answer all of your questions today, will you submit your life to Christ and become a Christian today, now? And they'll usually always say no. They'll always say no. And that just reveals, I think, that the heart, we look at what happened in the New Testament and we're like, how could that possibly be? God comes down, walks in the flesh, and is preaching and healing and doing miracles.
Right.
And people are like, nah.
He raises someone from the dead, and the religious leaders are like, this guy's got to go.
Yeah.
instead of submitting to him, they plot his murder.
Yeah.
And the murder of the guy he raised from the dead.
Right. And that's the story.
Mm-hmm.
It reveals, and this is why it's so despised. The story of Jesus is so despised for a number of reasons, but one is the Jesus of the Bible would be rejected by 99% of people today, who would say, if God would just reveal himself to me, I would believe.
Right.
But the same heart that was alive and beating in those people of corruption, that same heart beats in everyone's heart today, without God's direct intervention through his Spirit.
Right.
But it is the story of the Bible. It's a beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
God coming down to man to lift him up out of his depravity.
Yeah.
And to take him to a heavenly reality, to heaven. There's nothing like this story in any religion on the face of the earth.
Right.
Absolutely unique to Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's, in this story, God comes down in judgment and he scatters them. But that's not the end of the story. So we're not viewing the Tower of Babel story in isolation. It's put here chronologically before chapter 10, but sequentially after, because it's meant to kind of highlight as this anticipation of chapter 12.
And it's sandwiched between the other next genealogy.
There's the table of nations, the dispersed nations. Why? Because of the Tower of Babel. But now where's the hope? After these judgments we see in Genesis, there's always a glimmer of hope. So after Adam and Eve are judged, God clothes them. That's hope of atonement. After Cain murders Abel, God still gives him a mark and says, "No one's going to kill you." That's hope. After the judgment of the flood, there's still hope. God gives the rainbow and says, "I'll never destroy the whole earth again. As long as the earth stands, the seasons, rain, it will all keep going." Where's the hope here? He scatters them. Where's the hope? Well, that's where the rest of chapter 11, genealogy, and chapter 12 come in. That now hope is not going to be found in animals or a mark or a rainbow. It's going to be found in a person. And as the people of Babel set out to make a name for themselves, God is going to graciously choose one individual from amongst these scattered nations, and he says, "I'm going to make your name great." Not you're going to make your name great, or I'll help you to make your name great. I will make your name great. And through Abram and his offspring, God promises all the nations of the earth are going to be blessed. Right. And so now there's going to be this turning point, this kind of hinge that shifts the entire narrative onto this one person and his offspring, the nation of Israel, and ultimately his offspring singular in Christ.
Yeah.
And in Christ, God comes down, not in judgment, but in grace.
Yeah.
He comes down as one of us in the incarnation. That should just blow us away. Like these two stories stand together. In Babel, God comes down. In the gospel, God comes down. But this time he comes in the midst of our chaos and our sin to dwell amongst us, to reveal not God's judgment, but his grace and truth.
Yeah.
And he does the opposite of these Babel builders.
Right.
They're trying to make a name for themselves. Jesus comes to do the will of his Father. They want to tear God off of his throne. Jesus wants to reveal the Father so that people can come to him. At Babel, they are scattered in confusion and terror before God's judgment. By believing in Jesus, he'll gather you. He'll gather you together to God. And this great gathering begins in Acts chapter 2 with Pentecost, where Jews from scattered among the nations. And a lot of them, I mean, compare the list of Genesis 10 with the list in Acts chapter 2, and there's a lot of parallels. There's a lot of names that we should recognize.
Yeah.
And what do they hear? They hear the gospel being proclaimed in their language. The wonderful works of God are being proclaimed. And instead of confusion, they actually hear it in their language and they can understand it.
Right.
And because of Peter's preaching and the other apostles preaching the gospel in the languages that these people from the nations can understand, 3,000 people are gathered. They're not scattered. They're brought together.
Yeah.
And then, and that keeps going on.
Into
there's like little Pentecost throughout the book of Acts.
Into another kingdom.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And
Right.
it's just keeps expanding. The kingdom of God is expanding as people are hearing the gospel in their language and they understand it and they believe. And then ultimately we'll see in Revelation chapter 7, we've got people from every nation, every language surrounding the throne. And then ultimately in Revelation chapter 21, John sees the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven. So what they tried to do at Babel was build this tower, the city that would reach up into heaven. But what God does through the gospel, as people believe in Jesus, the ultimate purpose of God is not that man builds a city up into heaven, but that God's city comes down from heaven to earth. And all the heavenly realities will be accomplished when Christ comes.
Yeah.
And that holds the whole story together. Babel and New Jerusalem, these really are the two opposing kingdoms. And you're either going to be a part of Babel or you're going to be a part of New Jerusalem. And the only way that you can experience the heavenly reality of the New Jerusalem is by repentance and faith in Jesus.
Right.
He is diametrically opposed to Nimrod.
Right.
And he is going to, he's building his city, but his city will actually stand forever because it's God's city. And that's what we're anticipating. That's what we're hoping in.
Right.
Is this new city coming down from heaven, and all the things that we long for. We can't build it. We can't earn it. We can't work our way up to it. God has to do it for us, and He will.
Yeah,
He will. That's
right.
the hope that God has said He's going to do these things, and God will do these things.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's good. I thought it was a great sermon. I really appreciated it. Timely. We have 3 left in Genesis. Is that where we're going?
3 more in this round.
We're going Shem
next,
to Abraham.
Next is another genealogy.
Then where are we going?
Then we'll get the call of Abraham and his going into the land of Canaan. So we'll do what is that 12 1 through 9, I think, and then we'll do the rest of chapter 12.
Okay,
so
awesome.
we'll get through chapter 12 this round.
All right, very good, very good. All right, well, thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully, this has been a blessing to you, and you're able to see that in a very familiar Bible passage. There's a lot there. If you just slow down and think about what you've read already in Genesis and think about, you should read the rest of the Bible. so that you have that framework, but to start to think about these things in their context and how they unfold in the book that they're in, how it fits with the unfolding storyline of the Bible and where it's headed. Hopefully, this has helped you to see more and to hopefully encourage you to live for Christ, to live like Abraham, whose hope was in a place, in a city, whose founder and builder is God, a place that he didn't get to see with his own eyes, but yet he was living different than the world around him. If this has been helpful and beneficial, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we hope to see you next week. Have a good week. Bye-bye.